It's 6:30 AM and you're watching BBC Two's Open Education programming. To any children waiting for Champion the Wonder Horse to start over on BBC One, do remember that mummies and daddies that don't have to get up at 4 in the morning on a Saturday to go to work often like to have a special Saturday lie-in, so do keep the sound down, won't you? Now it's time to learn more about communication between neurotypes on the Autist Whisperer.
Literally, speaking literally. How often do you say what you mean? All the time? Most of the time? Or not that often? How often do you think that you don't tell the truth? Never? Occasionally? Or every day? From an autistic point of view, most people often don't say what they mean, and may not tell the truth as often as they think they do. It's not because people set out intentionally to deceive much of the time, but the way they communicate is peppered with ambiguity and assumption that many autists aren't party to. On the other hand, neurotypical people are often mystified or angered by autistic people because they receive implied messages from autists that were never intended, because the ways most autists communicate and use language are prioritised differently. There are lots of ways that the words we say can be modified by non-verbal communication methods. But even our choice of words and the order in which we use them can profoundly change the meaning of what we say. Shared cultural perspective is also an important element of communication too. Autistic people sometimes exist at least partially outside that shared universe, so don't know when you mean or don't mean the words that you say. Autistic communication is, by and large, literal in the truest sense of the term. The interpretation of the words is contextually founded in the strictest definition of each and every word. Neurotypical communication is modified by, amongst other things, innuendo, humour, idiom, and trends. Individual communities also have their own internal subsets of language, and the worlds of business and politics are filled with ever-changing buzzwords. There is often a subtext that can be read between the lines of the actual words said. People are expected to understand the hidden message, though sometimes specific language is used to deliberately exclude others to covertly deliver messages to like-minded allies. When an autistic person is spoken to, though, most of the techniques used to modify the meaning of words is lost. An autist will more than likely take your words at face value. Holistic communication often uses language outside its natural context, with the expectation that the other side of the conversation understands what the meaning is. Rather than express a like or dislike of something, you might say that you love it or hate it. You might tell your friends that you could kill someone who has angered or upset you. You may desire an outcome or an item so much you say you would do anything for it. None of those statements are true when taken literally, but there is a cultural understanding that shapes the way they're intended. In the absence of that understanding, though, they become powerful statements of emotion or intent. There are many other situations where your actual words may not match your intended meaning. Jokes and sarcasm are good examples of when you might say something which is completely untrue, but still expect your meaning to be understood. Another example is idiom. When you say you've been stabbed in the back, you don't literally mean you've been grievously injured by a third party, any more than crocodile tears are shed by carnivorous reptiles. The common usage of such phrases makes people feel secure in using them as elements of everyday conversation. To an autistic person, however, the techniques of altering the meaning of verbal language may not be as transparent as you might like it to be. Autists are often far less aware of the social context or the non-verbal signals that shape the intended meaning of your words, so it's not uncommon for misunderstandings to occur. To an autist, your words are more important than the modifiers or the context, so it can take some time to realise that your words are intended to mean something other than their implicit content. In some cases, particularly in our younger years, your meaning may be completely lost on an autist, leading to confusion, embarrassment, and occasionally tragic unforeseen consequences. Autistic speech and writing can be completely unambiguous. The words convey a literal meaning only. This is equally true for those of us who are non-speaking and use alternative communication methods. Autistic speech can be abrupt and to the point, lacking the usual airs and graces that might be expected. This is frequently misinterpreted as rudeness or disinterest. It is not. It's simply the autist conveying meaning without the cluttering of unnecessary words. If asking for a favour, rather than using phrases like, "if you wouldn't mind," "would you be so kind," or "if it isn't too much trouble," they're likely to simply ask outright for what they need. They may also find it odd that you do bury your request in such terms. Autistic people process information differently to neurotypical people, and are often barraged with so much information their brain has to filter it. Scientists believe that the high sensitivity to stimuli characteristic of autists may be the source of many of the difficulties they face in modern society, but also a great many of their strengths. Because autistic filtering varies from person to person, the most efficient way to communicate with an autistic person is to concentrate on ensuring the words you use are as precise as possible. Avoid filler words and frippery, and just stick to the point. Be prepared to explain yourself if asked, and understand that concepts you take for granted, such as social structures and popular culture, might need elaboration. From an autistic perspective, it's useful to understand that the use of what may seem like pointless filler language is important to neurotypical people since it provides vital functions. Filler words provide extra seconds of time to think, and niceties such as, "if you would be so kind," are part of the social lubrication that establishes the relative social standing of holistic people. Cultural references and idiom provide a form of shorthand for condensing complex concepts or topics, and may not at first reading seem directly connected. When you come across phrases that make little sense or sound contradictory, take the time to ask for clarification, and consciously add these phrases to your vocabulary. You may not feel comfortable using them yourself, but understanding them will make your communication with NT people more efficient in future. In Chapter 2 of the Autist Whisperer, we have learned that autistic people favour direct, literal communication styles, whilst neurotypical people colour their speech and writing with social references and shorthand that may seem contradictory if taken literally. We covered the hidden messages within much of holistic communication which are absent from autistic interaction, and stressed the importance of both sides asking and learning from the other when things don't seem clear. In Chapter 3 we'll be talking about concepts of honesty and truth and how they relate to autistic and neurotypical intercommunication. But for now, thank you for watching.